Joining us now is Bishop Earl Boyea of Lansing, Michigan. Thank you so much for being with us, Bishop.
Kevin, it's good to be with you.
Very special year here at the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. They're celebrating the centennial, and you had the opportunity to present a little of the history of the Bishops' Conference, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that. And maybe if you could start us off with the start, how this all began, and what was the catalyst for getting this all together.
Are you talking about the celebration itself or the conference itself?
The conference itself.
Okay.
Yes.
The conference, of course, began in 1917 as a way to formulate a united effort in the First World War. The Knights of Columbus were doing their thing. There were other groups, Catholic groups, doing their thing, and the bishops wanted to make sure that they were bringing this all together. I think they also wanted to make sure that they got some credit for this, so they assembled together in 1917 and began that process. The war ended pretty quickly, as you may know, after United States entry, and as a result, the bishops said, well, let's keep this organization going. It began as the National Catholic War Council. As soon as the war ended, they changed it to the National Catholic Welfare Council. So you can see it was no longer about war, it was how do we interact in our society and try to promote the common good.
And from there, it took off. Maybe talk about some of the things in your research, too, that you might have found that kind of surprised you or you were just learning yourself.
Well, one of the big things I talked about, I had 4 topics in mind. I was trying to deal with the period from 1945 to 1966 when there was a new formulation for the conference. It was no longer the National Catholic Welfare Conference, but it became the United States Conference of Catholic, became the National Conference of Catholic Bishops, and the United States, and the Secretariat was also established, 2 separate groups at that point. So during that time period, what was most fascinating for me were 2 topics. One, the Americans' engagement in the Vatican Council, American bishops' engagement in the Vatican Council, and secondly, the run-up to Humanae Vitae, those 2 issues.
And talk about the influence the Bishops' Conference has had over the years here, maybe some particular points along the way over these past 100 years and that have struck you.
Well, really, it is this issue of uniting, making a united effort. For instance, during World War II, the American bishops founded the Catholic Relief Services. They founded a number of other organizations to try to bring relief and support, not just to our own country, but to the world, in conjunction with the United States being a world leader at that point. And so our reach has really extended globally, and it was kind of a boldness on the part of the bishops to do this. So that to me is one of the most striking things about that war period in World War II. I think after World War II, what is most striking to me is, again, the bishops trying to maintain a teaching attitude on various topics, from race relations to education to all kinds of other topics. And it was almost like they were constantly fighting a battle, which of course has not changed up to the present day. And so that teaching authority of the bishops really comes across quite clearly after World War II especially.
And you presented the history to the Bishops' Conference as well. And maybe if you could talk about the importance of having knowledge of the history and how that can help in going forward.
Well, the comments that some of the bishops made to me after my presentation was, well, things haven't changed much, have they? So it's good to see, have a certain patience, and that we're facing many of the same issues that we always did, and we just keep going forward, just keep plugging away. But the key is to be united. Bishop Skilstead talked especially about having effective collegiality and effective collegiality. And the effective is that we really have to support one another, work together, be a unified body. And of course, that will lead then to effective collegiality if we are that.
Talk about, for you personally, coming here to the Bishops' Conference too, maybe some of the things that help you in your ministry, maybe finding out what's going on in other dioceses and working together on some issues as well.
I always find it pretty challenging coming here for these meetings every year, simply because then I think, oh, there's more homework for me to take back to Lansing to try to implement some of these things. Or even better, to give to the staff to do. I love to delegate, put it on other people's desks, and But yeah, I always get new ideas from my brother bishops, and a lot of them are challenging. Like this one, yesterday in our general session talked a lot about immigration and racism, those two topics. And it kind of urged me, I'm going to have to do a little more work on that than I have been. So, as an example.
Thank you so much, Bishop, for being with us, for giving us a little history of the Bishops' Conference. We appreciate it so much.
Glad to do it. Thanks, Kevin.